Okay, so for this piece, we're going to talk a little bit about directional fabric and how to get your fabric going in the right direction. It's a little bit of an advanced technique, but I am fully confident that you will be able to pick it up quite easily. So I'm going to start this the same way that I've done my other blocks, with a little bit of glue on the back end. And what I did not do is I didn't fold this over so that I can see. Here's one place where I kind of break my rule a little bit. And I want to make sure that I have a 1/4 of an inch down here. So I'm going to trim off this. And then I'm going to trim off this top section here. Okay, so when we have directional fabric, one thing that is very imperative to know is that we're following the same steps. We just have to think a little bit more about how all of it is coming together. So one of the first things that you might be tempted is to just flip over your fabric and cut a little bit, and that's not going to be the right way. What we need to do is we need to have the right side facing up, because our right sides have to go together. However, we have to pay attention to what's going on with the template. So here we want the text to be going across, horizontal. And there are a couple things that we could do wrong. If we want the text, I'm going to write this on the back side as well and really hope that the pen doesn't bleed through. So one thing that we might be tempted to do is line it up like this with the top of the fabric. And if you have a non-directional fabric, then that's absolutely what I would recommend for you to do. And what happens if we do this is our text is not only upside down, but it's going off to the side. This becomes more apparent if I turn it this way. That the 1/4 of an inch seam is underneath, and you can see that the text is going this way and my template is going this way. So they're turned a little bit. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. The next thing that you might be tempted to do is, well, all I will do is I'll just keep moving this until the text is going in the right direction. So what you could do is you could line up this line with the raw edge, the open edge of the template, and that would be absolutely correct, but we're missing one step. The thing that has happened is we've flipped over the template, so now it is upside down. So this is the only time that you will have to turn your fabric around, because we've turned the template, we folded it over. So now it's upside down. Our template is facing right side up like this, but once we fold it over on the line, then the template becomes upside down. So all we need to do, this is the lines, or the text is right side up. All we need to do is just turn it around like this. So the text is upside down. And this is hopefully the only time that you will ever be confused with foundation paper piecing, because it's really quite simple. This is just a trick to get so the lines go in the right direction. What I'm doing, I'm not paying attention to what is going on with this part of the template. I don't care what is going on here, just with the template only. I'm cutting into the middle of this fabric because I want something specific out of it. The next thing that I'm doing is the text is parallel to the raw edge of the fabric. What happens is if I turn this, let's see if I can do this without, I'm going to put a pin in here so that you can see what I'm talking about. So right now this is upside down to you, but if I turn this entire piece around, see now this is going the right direction. and once we would open it up, it'll go in the right direction. So here's what you need to know for directional fabric, is when you fold your template over, the fabric needs to be going in the opposite direction. So if you want it to be reading this way, you just need to turn it around 180 degrees and then line the raw edge of your template up with whatever direction you have this going. Don't worry about anything going on here. Just what you have in this little section. And then what we are going to do is we are going to be really brave, and we're going to cut our 1/4 of an inch, and I'm actually, because I have the pin in there where I want it to go, that is stationary, and I'm going to be super brave and cut in between these here. So there's about our 1/4 of an inch little area there. And I'm just looking to make sure that I have plenty. And then I'm going to move this over here, and I'm going to just trim this off. Again, because all I need is just what is in this little section right there. But I want to have it something that is going to be manageable. So before I sew this, I want you to see how this is going to work out. Okay, so there would be the 1/4 of an inch line, and you can see that the text is going in the right direction now. So let's go ahead and repin this. We don't need to do anything else with the fabric. It doesn't need to be twisted around because it's where we want it to be. So all we need to do is open up the template and put our presser foot in the middle of the sew line. And sew a little bit before, a little bit after. Now this really will feel magical because we have the text going where we want it to be. And you'll feel like a pro. Okay, set that aside, and then we're going to go to H3. And remember, that was the tree that I was going to kind of fiddle around with and decide where I wanted that to be. So now becomes the kind of fiddly part, but this is a really easy one. We're going to kind of follow the same method, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for, remember I didn't want to have this blue sky in that section. So whatever is in this section right here, so remember our right sides are together. And whatever we have with the template folded over, it's either folded this way or it's folded this way. Whatever is in this folded area, when it opens up, it will be right here. So fold this over, and I'm not too terribly concerned with what's going on outside. I'm concerned about what is going on the inside of this little tree part here. And I like where that is, so I'm going to pin this. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section down below, and I will answer them either by text, or I will answer with another video. So for this one, I think I am going, sometimes I don't trim these. It's pretty rare that I don't. So I am going to fold this back open, and I am going to trim it. Because it really does help to follow the same method every single time. Now, if you are using the directional fabrics for this piece and you're wondering how do I test it to make sure that it's going to work, what I would do is I would increase your stitch length so that you have a basting stitch and then you have less piercings in the fabric. And then you can see how it works out. The other thing that you can do is you can put your fingers along the seam here, and you can open it back up, or you can put some pins to see, is this going to be the way that I want it to be? So then you can make that decision before you actually sew. I'm going to trim some of the excess off, but I'm not cutting along the dashed line yet. Okay, so now we are going to sew the last one, and I have most of it already trimmed, but I need to trim the last bit. So we score along the solid line, fold over, and trim the excess. Now what I have is I have this burlap printed fabric, and again I want to make sure that it's going in the right direction. So what we'll do is we'll turn the template, and because these get to be a little bit fiddly, and I don't want the fabric to fold over, I'm just going to put just a little bit of glue. So this is another time that you do not want to line up. If you're using a directional fabric for the stairs, you don't want to line up with the raw edge, because what will happen is it will be going in the wrong direction. So you'll have lines for your other bit, and then all of a sudden you'll have part of the stairs that drop off, and it will look really, really funny. So we have our template like this, and we fold over the part just like we're going to put everything together, and then we're going to turn it around. And we know that this needs to be the bottom part down here. So what we will do is we'll use the lines in the fabric as our cue for whether it's straight or not. And I'm purposefully using extra fabric here so that you can see, and so that I can see, that there is plenty of room here. And again, we're concerned with only what is going on in this section. This part is going to be cut off. So this part down here is what is going to be opened up when the seams are put together. So I can see that this looks like it's going kind of in the right direction, and you could be really exact, but I think there's enough variation in here that if I'm not perfectly in line, it's going to be okay. So then, what I need to do is trim this off. Sometimes I get caught talking and I forget that I actually need to follow my rules. I have my rules in place for a particular reason, and things go together really well. So all I did was I left my template right where it was, and then I just trimmed the same way I have been trimming all of the other pieces. Make sure that when you pin, you're not moving the fabric at all. And then the other thing that you need to be cognizant of is when you are sliding your template onto your sewing machine throat, that the fabric doesn't get caught and doesn't get rolled over. Sometimes that happens. So I don't really have a good tip for that, because I still sometimes have it happen. So just be cognizant of when you put the template onto your sewing machine that you haven't had the fabric flip under. And if you have that happen, then all you need to do is just take out a few stitches and sew back over the top. And this piece is kind of wanting to pop up a little bit, so we'll put my log clapper on it for a second. And like I said, you might just want to sew over this with a basting stitch at first. Just sew one seam, make sure it's how you want it to be then sew, or with a basting stitch, and then go back over it with a shorter stitch and become comfortable with it. But this is not a technique that is so difficult that you will not be able to achieve this relatively quickly. It might take a little bit the first time, but this is really, really simple. I would not be teaching this to you if I was not confident that you could easily get this and you could easily be successful with it. So trim around, same method as before. You line up your 1/4 of an inch marking with the solid sew line, and then you trim along the edge of the ruler. And there you have it, directional piecing, and it'll all come together really, really nicely. I hope this is really helpful for you.